Whether you are on an adventure or at the downtown cafe, your answers are no more than a sniff away. Dog Training 360's purpose is simple: to teach you why dogs do what they do, as well as the action steps you need to take to have better communication, connection, consistency, and conceivability with your dog. Today on our podcast, we're going to be talking about obedience commands and how to use them in everyday life. Mm-hmm. And I first want to say thanks for listening. Give us a share and a like and a follow. We also have a super fun, interactive, adventurous, educational YouTube channel, and also our blog and our online dog training platform where you have 100% us for a lifetime of training for a minimal cost. So you can customize it to you, or you can follow our general training videos. So we would love to see you on there and love to have you a part of our online dog training family. Mm-hmm. People are having a great time with it right now, and it's helping kind of keep the mind busy or figuring out what to do.
The dogs from going stir crazy.
Yep.
They're getting their training
with their
every day.
People being home. But also, in this time of the coronavirus, the doggy daycares are closed down. Yes. Most dog walkers are not walking and doing anything because of the mandatory stay at home. And so, for us as trainers, we're still out working some people's dogs because of their having to still continue to work and obviously being safe. But, right now, more than ever, I think some people are going a little bit crazy, having to be home for one, talk about a drastic shift in routine, but also, they're used to sending their dog off to daycare to get them tired, and that's not happening. So this is the opportunity for you all to realize that you don't need to be so dependent on doggy daycares, and that you can train and work your dog and make them, content with what you're giving them.
Sure.
And realizing that your dog maybe doesn't need as much as you thought that they needed, especially because our life has slowed down enough that the dogs are kind of shifting gears as well.
Right.
And so, think about adventures, or think about, what can you do with your dog in this time of craziness and isolation. But I think what we forget is, what do you do with obedience? Like, why sit down, stay, come and heel? Like, I think that's such kind of a funny concept when you think about training.
Right. Because the perception is, right, you get a puppy, it needs to be trained.
Yep.
So you can go to a group class, or hire a trainer, or train yourself, the basic commands.
Yes.
Right? And the basic commands are the same all the time. That's everybody knows. That's what you teach your
down,
dog.
Stay, come, heel.
That is what they need to know.
Yeah.
And then you finish your class, and you don't ever tell your dog to do those things ever again.
Right. Right. Or they don't do it because they didn't learn it in the right context.
Oh, sure, because they learned it at class, and then when you come home,
or you
didn't teach it again. Yeah. So they will do it really good in class.
Right.
But at home, they don't at all.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind
of. But then your dog's trained. That's it. The end.
Right. Right. Yeah. And so, I think you can train and train and train and train and train, sit down, stay, come, heel, sit down, stay, come, heel, over and over and over. You can get your dog, put the leash on. We're going to have a training session for 10 minutes, and we're going to work on sit. And the dog sits, and it sits, and it sits, and it sits, and it sits. And then we're going to work on down, and it downs, and it downs, and it downs. And then we go, maybe we should try this in the front yard. And it sits, and it sits, and it sits, and it sits, and it downs, and it downs. And then when the leash is not on, the dog's like, woo, school's out. I can do whatever I want, right? I can play Xbox. I can get on the computer, play, It's this free for all, if you will, of not knowing what to do with that stuff. So it's a very fascinating concept to me, where Caroline is the first dog that if we define training as your dog is trained if they know sit down, stay, come, heel. And Caroline is the first dog that I have officially never trained. And so she doesn't know sit. She doesn't know down. She knows come because we are off leash and it's something that's important,
sure, for
right?
safety,
right. And she knows in general leash manners. We're working on that. But it's not a training session. It's just when we go for a walk, we work on leash manners.
Sure.
So I think what's so random about obedience is it's not really a thing that you need to have a good dog.
No. Well, because like you saying you haven't officially trained Caroline. Like, I don't know, like, all of my dogs maybe know one or two of those things.
Yeah.
And they don't all know the same ones.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, so none of my dogs are trained.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, have been sort of trained, half trained.
Yeah. I think Louis probably had the most, like,
formal
training.
Absolutely. Because he has had a lot of classes and things.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Dutch is the most working dog trained. But that doesn't necessarily mean how, sit down, stay, come, heel.
No, because I'd say, like, obedience-wise, she knows zero obedience. Because she doesn't even know sit.
Yeah. She knows down.
She knows down.
Yeah.
She doesn't know
There
sit.
you go.
And I'm not teaching it to her on purpose.
Yeah.
Because I don't want her to sit.
Yeah.
Because of the working.
Of working.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But, so, see, that's not trained, though.
Right. If, defining, a trained dog.
Things.
No, and I also would add go to your bed in there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I like go to your bed.
Yeah. But so none of my dogs, I mean, let's break down our dogs.
Okay, sure.
So Caroline has a good understanding of walking on a leash politely in most situations. If she knows that we're off leash and we get to get out of the crate from the truck and it's this off leash manners are completely out the window. But then our recall comes into play in that situation. So Caroline has an understanding of leash manners, and I would say right now her recall is about 85 to 90%. I mean, if her nose gets the best of her, she's still a puppy. We're still working on it. It's never an excuse. It's just that's where we're at. But she knows not to jump. She knows her kennel in a routine scenario. Like, I can't stand upstairs and tell her to go get in her crate. Let's see, what else does she know? That's kind of it. That's really kind of it. She doesn't get on the furniture. She's not a barker. She brings a lot of joy to everybody that meets her, and that's just like that
happiness.
energy with her. Amelia is about 65 to 70% on down. And that's it. We don't even have great leash walking. She knows load up. And that's getting in the back of the truck or getting on something with her job or herding stuff. And that's it. And Patsy has more training in the aspect of general conversation. Like, I can tell her to leave the cat alone, and she goes away from the cat. I can tell her to down. She's very clear with her down. Her recall is... probably about 90%. She doesn't really openly run. I can call her from anywhere and she's zipping over to me, really, no matter what's going on. Unless we're in a high prey situation and she's hurting and out of control. Kind of like, let's go, or go get in the truck. But nothing formally would be down. Her leash manners are getting better. But they're fantastic to live with.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about them being rude to people. It's a lot having 3 young dogs all together and company comes, but they're also not rude. You know, they're not jumping up and they're getting up on their barrels and they're, you know, enticing people to come
like,
touch
look
them.
And see what I can do. Don't you like me now?
But they really are, you know, very pleasant dogs and, you know. So let's talk about your 3.
Okay. Louis has the most formal training. We've done many classes and worked a lot with him. He does know sit, down, stay, come, heel, I would say. And go to your kennel. And I think he has really good manners. I think he's polite.
Yeah.
To the extent where he is even polite to the other dogs.
Yeah.
Like he has a politeness thing. Like he lets everyone go in the door before him.
Yeah.
Or out of the door before him. So he has a very politeness. He's by far the best walking on the leash of all 3 of my dogs. He is. We've walked a million miles together, you know, so he's quite good at walking. Ripley, I don't even know. Leash walking is a total no-go for her. Her heel is total crap.
Right,
you know,
right,
she is the worst. She is my worst dog at that.
Yeah.
She knows sit, down, come is iffy. Like if it has to do with busyness and you're going to do something, she will come. But if you just ask her, she's like, why am I coming again?
Right.
What are you going to do to me? I don't think I really want to.
Yeah.
She knows shake. She is very polite.
Yeah.
She does bark a little. And she's just, I think it's just a small dog thing for her.
Yeah.
That like she just has
There's
that
some vocalization,
like barkiness. She's licking my jacket right now. She's the licker. And she's very polite otherwise in the house, not destructive.
Yeah.
She will go in her kennel. She's the worst of all. Like if I say go in your kennel, the other 2 go in and wait for you, and she waits outside until you get closer, and
she wants
then
to make sure you're committed to her.
Then she'll go in. Right. Dutch, no, it's down. She's got it. Yeah. I have not taught her sit. Walking on the leash is a little hit and miss. But she's really trained as an off-leash dog and went back to leash walking. So she's perfect off-leash. Yeah, yeah. She knows shake. Mike taught her shake. And she'll go to the kennels. Great for her. She will load up on things. And she knows commands that we have taught for herding. Yep. And we are doing great on not being destructive. Yeah. She's been sleeping out in the house pretty much since we've been quarantined at home. And we've suffered no losses of pillows or blankies or whatever. So she's over that, which is something that we've been struggling with from her background of not living in the home. Right. She didn't know it wasn't appropriate to just like
not
do whatever she wanted. Right. Yep. So we're over that hurdle. And also polite. Yeah. I think all my dogs are quite polite to guests. Yeah.
So when you have, you know, prior to our isolation world, when you had, you know, people coming over and entertaining with you and Mike, you know, what were some of the comments that you hear about your dogs from people?
Oh, people. Well, the showstopper is if people are over and we're going to leave and go somewhere and I say, go to your kennel, and they all just run all in. Yeah. And they're like, oh my gosh, your dogs are so well trained. Yes. Because I just say, go in your kennel, and they all of them, go in. And then I just go close all the doors and we go, you know. Yeah. But they just think they're nice and funny. Yeah. I think. Yeah. Everybody loves Louis. They want him to sit by them. Like he will just like jump up on the sofa and sit by you. Yeah. But he doesn't climb all over or jump on you or be really demanding. Yeah. But it's just because everyone that comes over wants him to come and sit by them. Yeah. Yeah. And just like have this cuddle, kissy, I don't know what it is that they just like about him. So he'll just, gets up and sits by you, but he doesn't claw at you or dig on you or clench.
Right.
And if you say go away or push him, he'll go away, you know.
Yeah.
But they just, I don't know. I think they think they're cute and nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hear from people with mine, wow, they're so well trained.
Yeah.
And they're not really. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like if we
I do
define
because
it.
my dogs are the same.
right.
There's people do say that. Or if you go for a walk, even though like Ripley's horrible at walking, Louie's a champion, and Dutch is like hit or miss. People still are like, how do you walk all those dogs?
Yeah.
All three at the same time. Look at how good they are, you know?
Yep.
So they, even though they're like not the level that I think is good, other people perceive that they're good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And this podcast could potentially put us out of business.
Because we're like, you don't need to train your dog.
The dog trainer that's saying you don't really have to train your dog. But there's some key fundamental things that I think if we were to define a trained dog,
sure,
from really a trainer's perspective, we don't need sit down, stay, come, and heel in any formal fashion if we're not going into a competitive situation. Dutch and Patsy and Amelia are working towards going into a very competitive situation. And there are certain commands, not obedience, but certain working dog commands that they have to know and understand, and they will be clear about it when we go in. But formal obedience is not something that defines a trained dog. If you have connection, if you have communication, if you have routines and expectations, you will have a trained dog. And who cares if they sit at the front door before you walk out, as long as they don't barge out the front door?
Well, I think it's something that you have to define kind of for yourself. Because for some people, that's really important to them.
For sure.
And I think that's great.
Yep.
So you have to decide what's important to you. And then...
But I think you have to be... I think that comes into routines and expectations.
Sure.
Because if that's your routine and that's your expectation, you need to know why it is.
Right. Not
is it because you're trying to prevent them from bolting out the door? Because they will if you don't do otherwise? Or is that routine a good start for you?
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. I think an example of in practice, I do have like an invisible barrier for my door because I don't want the dog to rush people that come in.
Right.
And I don't want him to rush me. I'm coming in, I'm carrying all the groceries, and I want him to wait away from the door. Right.
Yeah.
And like people come in and out of my door all the time, and they don't bolt out.
Yeah.
Like
right.
And we'll say we've trained the invisible barrier.
Yeah.
But we do have instances where people open the door and then stand in such a way that it's like an invitation for the dog to go out.
For sure. Yep.
And so then all the dogs will run out.
Right. Yep.
And so then we just say, what are you doing? Come back inside. And they're like, oh, are we not supposed to be out here?
Right.
And then they come back in.
Yeah.
Or like we'll go, they really just go and like want to get in the car.
Yeah.
So then we go get in the car and go for a little ride or whatever.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, well, when we go out this door, we
obviously
go to the car and go for a ride,
Yep.
And so, I mean, I think that's an example, that there's an expectation that we don't run out this door.
Right.
But we have a connection and a communication that when we do run out the door, we say what we're supposed to be doing, and it brings the dog back to what you want it to do.
Yep. Exactly.
So
exactly. So, training, and when I go into homes, we teach sit down, stay, come, heel in a fashion that is more about having manners, not about how perfect the sit is, or we sit every time we do this, or we're down every time we do this, and when you get on your bed, you lay down and don't you move. You know, it's a very organic way of training and using those as tools. And I prefer to call obedience training tools to be successful at connecting and living with your dog, not necessities.
Well, and because I think you train this stuff and you find this way that you use it. Like you teach the dog to stay, but you don't, most people don't use their formal, like a formal thing, like where the dog stays there like until you come back for it or whatever. But like you tell your dog, you stay there for a minute. And then you expect them to stay there until you do whatever you're doing. And then it's okay. And so like, it's not this formal stay where they stay for so many minutes and they maintain the same position, but you just are asking them, wait right there for a sec, you know? And that's a practical thing. That you might not do every day. I mean, I hardly ever tell Ripley to stay, but we were doing a photo shoot the other day, right? And I told her to stay there, and she did. But it, like, I am not asking her to do that every day. It was just like a random, like, or like I took a picture this morning that was like everyone having coffee. And so I had to put them all up and say, stay there while I came around to the other side of the counter and try and take a picture. So it's like you train it to use in your life later, but it's not formal at all. Is my point.
And you have to train in an informal way to make it not formal, so the dog understands what you know, how you're going to use that. So, you know, as we just said, you know, why train your dog? But it truly is, there's got to be purpose in what you're asking them to do, right? It's not every day that you put your dogs up on the stools and you have them sit at the bar.
And have a coffee. Right.
You know, so, but they all have a concept of, there's this purpose that you're asking us to do this, and there's a reason why. And so we're going to do it because you've never not asked us to do something for no reason. The dog doesn't know why you're having them sit at the door, and I can pretty much guarantee you that if the door is open and the invitation is there, they're going to go no matter what. Unless you teach them the barriers of, we don't go out the door. The sit is not what stops them from going out the door. So that's what's important with training, is we have these tools or these behaviors that we can use to create purposeful interaction with our dog. And that's where, when we say training, does your dog know sit? Of course they know sit. They're born knowing how to sit. So now I'm going to take that tool and I'm going to place them on the stool in a sitting position and take their picture, and they're going to understand that this is a purposeful thing because I have the camera out and I'm purposeful with what I'm doing. And so it's that stuff that where training, if we were to define it from my perspective, your perspective, from a trainer's standpoint, I shouldn't say trainer standpoint, because I know a lot of trainers that strictly believe in the structure. And that's okay. But for me, when I define a trained dog, the dog takes the tools that they have and complies because there's purpose in what you're asking them to do.
Absolutely. Because Ripley will never be a competition dog. I don't imagine. Never say never. But, you know, like, she
competitive eating.
She doesn't have a structured personality. But she's a lovely dog.
For sure.
That
absolutely
lives in our house with little to no problems and does what I ask her to do. And that's, I don't need, like, we're not going to go compete in French ring or...
Right.
Whatever. You name it. Herding, name any obedience or competition thing. We're not doing it.
So I, take this podcast and really think about, how can you use the tools in a purposeful way to get your dog to comply with what you're asking them to do. Mm-hmm. And a sit doesn't stop other behaviors. Mm-hmm. So just something to think about.